It was said the other day, there's been several evocative statements made. The first is that our destination is not nirvana or enlightenment or God realization or cosmic consciousness. Our destination is a state of absence of illusion. The second statement made is that love is the greatest illusion of all. Remembering that the many and often disparate stories that are told are not to teach, but to break down our conditioned thinking about what the theme of the stories is. The theme of the stories at the moment is love. And there's that story about the great Sheik, the leader of one of those nomadic tribes that wander the deserts of Arabia. And one day this Sheik was out hunting with his nephew, a young man, and they travelled far, so the distance to return to their encampment was long. So, as it was known that this Sheik was a great storyteller, he was regaling his nephew, Ali, with one of those stories as they traversed the long distance back to their camp, when suddenly Ali noticed something gleaming in the sand. But, not wanting to be disrespectful or interrupt his uncle in the middle of his story, he just quietly lowered the lance that he was carrying down so that its point dragged and made a rut in the sand as they travelled. Now when they arrived back at their encampment, and the Sheik went immediately to his tent to relax after the long journey, Ali went to his family camp and informed them, "If anyone is looking for me, tell them that I'm sleeping." And without even alighting from his horse, he turned it around and followed the rut that had been made by his lance, until he came to the place where that which was gleaming in the sand was there in front of him. Now when he alighted from his horse and picked up that which was gleaming, it was a gold amulet engraved with a filigree that was so refined could only be made by a great artisan. So carefully taking this amulet, he rode the way back to his encampment, and there he found that his uncle, the Sheik, had now gathered with the other men of their tribe and were smoking the hubble-bubble pipe together. And so Ali entered that group, and he showed the group that which he had found in the sand, and they all agreed that such a piece of work could only belong to someone who was of elevated station and could only be a female, because the work was so refined and could only be worn by a woman. But when the Sheik heard this discussed by the other men in the group, he said, "I must add this woman to my harem." And so he called an old midwife to him and instructed her to go and find the owner of this amulet so that he could make her his bride. So taking the amulet, the old woman set out, going from tribe to tribe, displaying the amulet, but not finding its owner, until one day she came across a vast array of tents. And when she approached and showed the amulet, she was immediately taken to a large and sumptuous tent occupied by the daughter of the Sheik of that tribe. This young woman was not only beautiful, but she was kind and gracious. And when the old woman was brought into her presence and told the story of the amulet, not only was she listened to with great attention, but she was given hospitality of a royal kind. And when the old woman had completed her story, the young woman went to a chest and brought out an amulet that was identical to the one given by the old woman. And the young woman said, "You see, these are a pair. Take them back to your sheikh. They obviously belong with him." But of course the old woman tried to refuse this gift, but it was put upon her to accept both these beautiful pieces of filigree golden work. So she went back to her sheikh and told the story. But of course, the nephew Ali was in that presence, and when the old woman was waxing lyrical about the beauty, the graciousness, the nobility, the kindness of the princess who owned these amulets, Ali, without even seeing her, fell in love with what it was that her attributes conveyed. So it was decided the Sheik and Ali and an entourage of camels bearing gifts went to seek the great tent city in which the princess lived, to seek her hand in marriage. So when they were arrived, of course, the Sheik, her father, greeted them and gave the hospitality that was renowned amongst these tribes. Camels and goats were killed to feast for those who were the guests. Now, of course, after the feasting was completed, the Sheik of that tribe asked, "What is the reason for this visit?" And of course, the Sheik said, "I've come to claim as my bride your daughter." And so, of course, the hospitality being as it was, the second Sheik could not refuse this request. And so it was that the wedding was to be arranged between the Sheik and the daughter, the princess. Now, when she was dressed in her bridal gear and all preparations were made for the wedding to take place, when it came for the moment that the bridegroom would don the wedding cloak, the Sheik, who was to be the husband, said to Ali, "I can see that you are besotted with this maiden." So taking the wedding cloak, he placed it around the shoulders of Ali, and he said, "Go and claim your bride." Now, as Ali was walking to the tent that had been set up for the nuptials to take place, a young man approached him, and falling down on his knees in front of Ali, thinking that Ali was in fact the Sheik, he beseeched him, he begged him, he said, "Your bride is my cousin, and she was promised to me when we were children, and we grew to love one another dearly. Please, I beseech you." In that moment, Ali took off the wedding cloak from around his shoulders and placed it on the shoulders of the young man. And looking at the young man, he said, "Go and claim your beloved bride." So the question that arises out of this story is, what kind of love was it that Ali demonstrated? What say you as we look at with these stories the different ways of love? What is the love that's demonstrated in this tale?